128 gigs of storage, 6 gigs of RAM, all in a tiny phone that's only as long as my thumb. This is the Unihertz Jelly2. It's actually one of the best phones I've ever used just because it's so unique. But the question is, who the hell is this phone for? Okay, so before I start this video, if you have any questions or you want to ask anything or just like you want to argue with me, Instagram and Discord are the best way to reach me. I reply to everything linked in this. Let's talk about this Unihertz Jelly2. First off, I'd just like to say that it's a good phone, and this is an honestly absolutely impressive feat of engineering. They fit everything under the sun into this device. And it's honestly truly impressive what they've done here. And it's also a testament to technology nowadays, being able to cram so much stuff into really tiny compact packages. So in terms of design, you've got this plastic shell, and sure, it's not the best thing because it's glossy, but because it's so small, you don't really mind that it's glossy anyway. And on the front, you've got Gorilla Glass 3. And for a tiny phone, it's surprisingly well built. It's actually feels like a little brick inside your hand. And that's probably because it's an actual brick. It's so densely packed in terms of its internals, its specs, more of which I'll talk about later, that it's not a surprise that it feels like a little beast brick in your hand. It's tinier than the Nokia 3310 as far as I can tell, but it almost feels as dense. Now on the back you find the 16 megapixel camera that comes with it. It has autofocus. This is the only camera on here that has autofocus. You have a fingerprint sensor for unlocking the phone. Nice place to put it. On the bottom we have a speaker grill. The speaker gets pretty loud, but it doesn't sound great in any way, so don't expect great music performance or headbang with the concert on here. It's a tiny phone, what do you expect? And on the right side we've got a lock button and a customizable button, so like a Bixby button but actually useful, a SIM card tray, and a USB-C port for charging and data transfer and all that stuff. On the left you have a volume rocker and not much else. And on top there's the star of the show in my opinion on this phone, it's the headphone jack. Not only does this phone pack a lot of specs, they even managed to cram a headphone jack in this super tiny compact packet, which leads me to believe that Apple is a complete scammer and all they want you to do is buy more AirPods, which is why they removed the headphone jack. Simple as that. Apple, stop being such scumbags, give us back the headphone jack. Anyway, back to the front of the phone, we have Gorilla Glass 3. As I've said before, the build quality is really nice of this phone and the materials are really high quality. Now think of this phone less of a cheap phone because it's small, but rather a premium phone that has been downsized and crammed into a tiny package, and it shows. Now the front of the phone is quite interesting. So you've got a selfie camera, it's 8 megapixels, more on the camera performance in a bit. You've got your earpiece for calls and stuff, and you've got hardware buttons. Like on a tiny phone, you would expect that they don't really want to spend space giving you hardware buttons. But at the same time, a hardware button might be more convenient and more sensitive on such a small compact device that your fat thumbs are less likely to bump it by accident, less likely to press things by accident. The bezels on this phone are pretty thick on the front, but at the same time, because it's so small, it's actually not a bad thing, because that way you don't accidentally activate and press your screen all over, which might be a good thing. Speaking of which, the screen. It's a 3-inch display. I don't exactly know the resolution, just know that it's not much because it's such a tiny display. It is not a nominal screen. It looks like an LCD because it is an LCD, and it doesn't get close to bright enough to be used outdoors in bright sunlight, especially in Singapore where we literally live on the equator and as bright as it could be. So if you're trying to use this outdoors, you're probably gonna have to cup your phone like this, which is fine because it's a small phone. But the screen is reasonably okay. You're not watching Netflix HDR movies on here, you're watching YouTube videos or watching some short Instagram photos or stuff on here at most, and you won't be doing it for long because it's so small and uncomfortable with such a small screen. So the screen quality isn't the most important thing. So long as it's high enough resolution for things to be clear and text to be reasonably clear, and good enough for me to watch some sort of video clips and stuff without too bad of an experience, I'm happy. And it does that, so I'm happy. It's not got great colors, not got great contrast, but it's fine. And the touchscreen is super responsive too, and it needs to be because it's such a tiny screen. Palm rejection and getting accuracy in terms of the touch is super important so that you can actually type on this thing or actually scroll on this thing and actually use it effectively. And the touchscreen is super responsive, super snappy, and actually pretty sensitive and pretty accurate, which is even with the pre-included factory provided screen protector. It also comes with a rubber kind of this jelly case, which I don't like. I think it's disgusting and ugly, but you can use it if you want. But back to the screen is nice, snappy, and that's super important because if you want this as your daily driver of a phone, you're probably gonna have to use it to text someone sometimes, or Google something, or search something, or like take notes or something. And you can actually type on this phone. It's just not a great experience. Now my fingers and my thumbs are huge, honestly, for the size of my hands especially, and my hands are pretty big. In fact, this phone only takes up like 1/4 of my hand size, almost, or 1/3. So that means, typing on this is a tough experience for me, and I expect someone with more petite hands and petite fingers, and maybe a pianist with very nimble fingers to have no problems typing on this. But for me, it's a hassle. But what is surprising is that I could still manage to type with like a 80% accuracy most of the time, so long as I slow down and be more careful. It's just that when you're trying to type fast, it's gonna be a nightmare on this phone just because it's so small of a screen. So don't expect to be typing your next big novel, your next Lord of the Rings on here. That's not a good idea. Also, your eyes will probably hurt after looking at it for so long, typing a novel. So yeah, it's actually usable, which is surprising, but not great. Talked about responsiveness, and on that subject of responsiveness and snappiness, let's talk about how fast this phone is. As I said at the start of the video, it's got 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. And that's not the only impressive specs that is packed under the hood of this phone. It's got an octa-core processor running at 2 GHz. I'm not actually sure who made it, but it is a very fast snappy processor. And with so little pixels to push, the processor doesn't have to work very hard for you to have a good experience in terms of gaming and all that. And it ran all the games I played on it pretty fine. Mobile Legends, League of Legends Wild Rift, PES. PES was a terrible experience just because of how small it was, but it was surprisingly doable. Now this phone was actually loaned from my colleague, and he was the main person who was playing all these games on it, and he actually did manage to play on it and have a good time. I don't know how, but his fingers are much more skinny and slender than me, so he could actually do that. For me, it was just a hassle. But it can run those games fine, no problem. So in terms of performance, there's nothing to fear here, and chances are you won't be doing anything too intense on something so small. Definitely no video editing. Please don't do that. Speaking of video editing, let's talk. Oh man, my segues are always on point. Speaking of video editing anyway, let's talk about the camera quality on this phone. It's not good. The camera is a 16 megapixel shooter on the back and an 8 megapixel shooter on the front. The selfie camera is a fixed focus and the rear camera has autofocus. But both are pretty much not the focus of this phone. I'm so bad at jokes. But seriously though, it's not a phone that you buy for the camera, it's a phone that you buy for its size, and it shows. The camera is usable and it's fine, I guess, for that occasional Instagram story, but everyone will know you're shooting on an Android and it just doesn't look that good. If you want to do your OOTD, if you're an influencer who cares a lot about the camera, get the iPhone 12 mini instead for a compact phone with a good camera. For people who don't need cameras, it's like their main priority. Maybe they use the camera once in a while to record their receipts, record their notes, or digitize the document. It is perfectly usable. 16 megapixels is fine. Anyone who really cares about their phone camera should look elsewhere. This isn't the camera for you. Now, let's talk about the software features and software on here. So it runs stock Android, well, mostly stock kind of Android, and it ships with Android 10. It does have a few additions and a few changes. So instead of having an app drawer, you kind of have this singular home screen, which is more convenient for a tiny screen. And the app drawer is 9 icons instead of maybe 20 or 15 or stuff like that. And the settings menu is a bit different to have some different things, such as the ability to customize this sub button to basically have any features you want. So you can use it to launch voice memo, or you can use it to launch flashlight like this, which is by default, and you can use it for a variety of things, which is super convenient and super nice. I like that they put this button in here because it makes a lot of sense. This kind of phone is for someone who always wants their phone handy. It's so tiny and so easy to hide and keep alongside you, keep with you at all times, that having something that allows you to have like a handy feature launcher, like maybe voice memos, I saw Mr. Mobile do that, or maybe notes or stuff, or camera app with the quick activate button. It just makes sense, you know. You whip this out of your pocket or your bag real quick, and you can quickly access the thing that you use the most with this red handy button, and it's just like a feature that just like, it makes perfect sense. But who cares? I like this button and I like it a lot. I think every phone should have a customizable button to quick launch stuff, and I think more phones should have more buttons nowadays, because volume, lock, keys, that's boring. Give me more stuff. I like Sony's phones with the shutter button, super nice. Okay, let's talk about battery life since we're talking about Sony's, because Sony phones, in my experience, have had terrible battery. My segues are getting worse in this video. But it's got a 2000 mAh battery, which is okay, I guess, but it's a really tiny screen and it's a really processor that doesn't really have to work very hard, so I don't expect the battery life to be bad. Now the screen has been on at full brightness this whole time I've been talking, and it's only gone down from 33% to 31%, and it doesn't sound too impressive, but I have had a YouTube video running in the background, so that's that. Battery life of this can last you a day comfortably, especially if you're not like a compulsive addicted user. But if you're playing a lot of games, then expect, of course, to bring a power bank along or charge it. And what's funny is that a power bank is probably much bigger than this phone is. Fun fact, this camera battery right here is 2000 milliamp hours, and actually it's not even 2000 milliamp hours, it's 1200 milliamp hours. This is the phone with a 2000 milliamp hours battery. Not to mention the fact that it actually has a whole phone including it. I love technology. This was released in 2014, made in 2014, and this was made in 2019, 2020. Technology is awesome. So I guess that's it for this phone. I mean, I pretty much covered all the bases. We've got design, build quality, battery life, screen, performance. software, all that has been covered with this phone. I guess it's time for a conclusion. And I think in conclusion, this phone is truly a very impressive device and also a very confusing device, because I'm not sure why anyone would want this phone. I can see a few uses for it actually. One maybe as a backup phone to keep on you, as a secondary phone, you know, maybe for your work. One that maybe as a phone that you only use to pick up calls and stuff, as like a, you know, SOS phone that you just keep with you. Or maybe it could be a phone that you throw in your luggage as a backup phone if your main phone breaks, because it's nice and small, it doesn't take up space. It could also be something like an MP3 player, like a music streaming device that's dedicated for music streaming. It's got 128 gigs of storage. I could put Spotify on here, or Tidal, or Google Play Music, and get all my songs on here and download it. And you know, I can just use it as like a portable MP3 player with the headphone jack that can actually do more than just music playing, unlike those dedicated music devices. So you can actually stream with this because it's an actual smartphone. There are a lot of possible use cases of this. It's just that the only use case that I can't think of it as functional and being effective is being a normal daily drive smartphone. However, my friend who actually bought it, the colleague that lent me this phone to review, actually managed to use it for a week straight, no problems at all, before he gave up and just went to use his iPhone 12 mini. I don't know how you do that, but he did. So if someone is really into tiny phones, then I guess this is a good choice. It might be your only choice on the Android side of things, which is kind of interesting. But I think it's just to sit. But I think at the end of the day, this is a phone where if you are into small phones, you already know about and you're really on your way to getting. And if you are into small phones, like if this is a phone for you, you will already know that it's a phone for you just by its size. And if you are the kind of person who's been thinking about getting one of these because you really want a super tiny 3-inch phone, I can say wholeheartedly go ahead. It's a very well designed, well built phone. It's impressive, has a lot of good features, and it's a very cohesively well executed device. It's a premium phone in a small body, not a small phone that happens to be cheap. It really is a good phone fundamentally. The only thing that is the issue is that it's really small, which is going to be a big problem for a lot of people, me included, so I would never use this as my daily driver. And for those people who are on the sidelines using normal phones, like me and most of my viewers, you might be wondering why those people might buy this phone. And apart from those reasons that I listed earlier, I really don't know. No, not judging, it's just I don't understand it. But either way, that's it for this video. I hope you guys found it enjoyable or kind of helpful in a certain way, because I think this is a truly unique, interesting smartphone, a very interesting, unique device that you don't really see every day. You can make really big things really, really good, or you can make really big things become really, really small, and that's what happens when technology improves. So it's cool to see all that evolve. Anyway, that's it for this video though. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and like my previous video too if you want to get a giveaway of the gaming mouse that I reviewed in that video. It's a Jelly2 S Stardust Edition. If it hits 35 likes, the mouse will be given away to anyone, well, to one lucky viewer. So make sure you go and like that video, check that out, watch the whole thing as well. Anyway though, I'm gonna end the video off here. I've rambled on long enough. See you guys in the next video, which is tomorrow. Goodbye.